nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Episode 254. Happy to be back again. Got a great guest today. Someone that, you know, in my heyday of being in the hobby in the 80s and late 80s and then into the 90s, the gentleman behind this company was important to what was going on. And those effects are still being felt today, and those ripples are still being felt today, even though the company is no longer around. Makes no difference. He is innovative, creative, hands-on, and he's our guest today, Mr. Mike Cramer of Pacific Trading Cards. This will be part one. We will have part two next week. We cover a lot of ground. I know it was a privilege and an honor for me to speak with Mike, and I didn't want to not ask any questions. So it's a long interview, but rather than do one super long episode, we'll break them up into two reasonable length ones. So this week, part one, next Friday, part two, and very candid and just had a great time, learning about the history of the hobby, the history of Pacific, and the history of Mike Cramer.
Hi, this is Pat Hughes, Cubs announcer, coming to you from the Sports Card Shop in beautiful New Buffalo, Michigan. The Gocher family has built an incredible place here for collectors to buy, sell, and trade cards and memorabilia. Be sure to stop by and let them show you around. TheSportsCardShop.com, connecting sports, athletes, the hobby, and collectors around the world.
Hi, this is Alan Pinkett, and I'm here to tell you the Gocher family has done it again. They've just opened up the Sport Card Shop in downtown Valparaiso, Indiana, and it is awesome. If you're a collector, you need to check this place out. Tell them Alan sent you and get a free gift on your first visit.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at Midwest Box Breaks.
Also, remember to check out Midwest Box Breaks Marketplace for breaks, packs, and single cards from over 300 trusted sellers. Apply to sell today at iso.gg/Midwest Box Breaks. One thing I love about this podcast, it allows me the opportunity to talk to people who were very inspirational to me as a collector and even a dealer growing up with my 40 years in the hobby. And this next gentleman on the Sports Card Shop guest line checks all those boxes, and really excited to talk to him. He's one of the original innovators when we talk about cards and manufacturing and design, and I don't want to make them wait too long to finally get them to say something. But Mr. Mike Cramer of Pacific Trading Cards, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, John. Can't wait to get into a little discussion and talk about that.
Yeah, and you know, you got a new book, Cramer's Choice, appropriately titled, much like the insert set. There it is for those watching on video. I was privileged enough to get to read a digital version of it, which I read very quickly. That's how good of a book. I'm not a huge reader, truth be told. I mean, I can read, but when I find a good book, I usually consume it pretty quickly. That's a sign to me that I'm genuinely interested, and I don't want to put it down, so to speak. And so your book definitely checked all those boxes. And while, Mike, I knew quite a bit about your history, this really you pulled the curtain up and let people kind of see stuff that at the time, obviously, we on the other side of the curtain, we didn't know all the intricate details. Where you kind of led us behind there with that. And it was like I said, a great read. I'm sure others who haven't read it yet, but who will attest to that as well. I guess my first question here, lighthearted, what do you miss more, king crab fishing or running a card company?
Definitely running a card company. King crab fishing was for me a long time ago. Although I did it for 10 years, but it kind of wore me out over the years. So running the card company was the greatest job on earth, in my opinion, and I did have a good time doing it. I miss it somewhat, but I also know that I spent my time doing it, and everybody's time ends at some time, and mine ended, but I had a great time doing it.
Yeah, and you did a great job. We're going to talk about some of that stuff you brought to the hobby that's we're still seeing today. It's that good that it can still be utilized in 2023 and beyond. And you did king crab fishing before it was like cool, and the deadliest catch made it sort of cool. But people don't realize that people unfortunately sometimes lose their life. It's a dangerous job. While it has its probably fun moments, it's a physical profession, and one that sometimes hopefully not, but sometimes can cost someone their life. And but it was that job that really fueled Pacific, and sort of, and especially in the early days, funded and kept was the foundation sort of for what became Pacific trading cards. I want to start out, we kind of talked before we hit record. This is the 1975 Phoenix Giants minor league set, featuring its 26 card set. There's I got you right on the top of the set, you holding some cards up and some of your collection. This was really, as you talked about it in the book, Mike, this was really your first foray into producing cards. Obviously, you were a dealer from a fairly young age, but this was your first, production attempt. Very successful, led to other teams contacting you and saying, "Hey, do our sets as well." At that time, 1975, did you have some, glorious thoughts of long term what you wanted to do, or was it that's what you were doing in the moment?
It was actually just that's what I was doing in the moment. But in the back of my mind, I always had the thought of what if I could make Major League Baseball player cards or NFL cards, hockey cards. But at the moment, that's the foray I got into card manufacturing was at 1975 set, and I had such a good time doing it, and it was so rewarding. I just kept pushing that envelope a little bit, and the next year I made some more cards, made color, and I put myself in that set because the Phoenix Giants gave away 2,500 sets, and I thought, what a better way to reach possibly other collectors and try to start a trading card club or something down in Phoenix when I lived there, and it worked. And the fact that it ended up like 30, 40 years later, that card, now people collect it, but it was actually just to try to get me to introduce to people, and it worked. So I was pretty happy about that.
So for clarification purposes, that's the Mike Cramer rookie card.
Yes, it is, and I think it's the only one I have. We never made another one. We made a bobbing head doll of me, but that's the only card I have. And my grandkids love it, and a few collectors say they like that card too.
Do you get them in the mail, like the sign that people TTM you the card?
I do.
That's pretty cool.
I every once in a while one shows up and I'll sign it and send it back, and I guess that's what collectors do. They want cards signed, and I'm happy to sign.
That's cool. So did I hear you right though? I didn't realize this. If this is the case, I'll have you clear. You never appeared on a Pacific trading card. I know the bobblehead.
No, never did. Just wasn't. I just wasn't going to make a card of me for the heck of it.
Yeah.
That 75 one had a purpose, and so no, that we never made another one of me in a Pacific product. Probably should have, but just never, the opportunity never came up.
Well, I think it's cool. Like, I'm not saying you legitimately could have. You had your sets where you picked kind of the players that made it, like your Cramer's choice. You could have even put like a picture yourself on those with kind of a quote or whatever why but I think the fact you didn't, it really speaks volumes of you, right? It was about the players and the sports, and you know what I mean, at the
Right.
time, and and that's what it was about. Although I wouldn't have blamed you, and I'm sure many others wouldn't have either, had you made a Pacific trading card, Mike Cramer. We'll talk a little bit about the bobblehead here in a little bit. One of the things is the innovation, and I don't have all the stuff that you did at Pacific. It's a long list. The book goes over a good portion of that, which learning how you sort of came up with the idea or where it sort of came from. I found very interesting. But one of my favorite designs, and I'm holding this card up, which is the Crown collection,
Mm-hmm.
which the card is die cut. Nowadays we see these, and it's an insert set, and they can still be. But you made this is a base card, if you will, and you made a set that looked like every card should be like an insert set. And you got the sort of the holographic foil, that crown, just a very cool card. And at the time, we could make an argument that some of the other companies were sort of lacking in innovation, Mike, and it was you that really took the baton and started running with it. And I think it's your designs that really sort of fueled other companies, took notice, let's say, and said, hey, look at this, at the time, smaller company that's getting bigger, and they're sort of setting they're the trendsetters here. Yet we're sort of supposed to be the big man on campus. And it really, I think, kicked in some of those competitive things. Was that sort of the thought process? I know, like in the book, you say, listen, you were just trying to make cards that if you liked, you figured more other people would like it too. But how much of it was, hey, we need to make sort of a name for ourselves, and hey, these other companies are sort of sitting on their hands instead of thinking outside the box here, and we're not going to do that here at Pacific.
Right. That was a lot of it. We wanted to make something different and new, and not the same old thing. And it's a testament to what we did back then, that almost everything being made nowadays looks like something that Pacific did back then. I'm told that almost every day by collectors, that the cards they collect nowadays look just like what Pacific did. They might have different foils and different motifs to them, but what we made back then looks just like what they're doing. The most interesting thing to me is the Gold Crown die cut that you showed is still being made by Panini. That same exact shape is still being used, and that was an insert card. The one you're thinking of was a Crown Royale, which was a different shaped crown, but they're still making that also. And I can't think of other cards designs that are that unique that are still being made nowadays. That exact same design lived on, and I'm pretty proud of that.
And you should be. I think it's important, and I always say, like, when we have a lot of new hobbyists. The hobby is growing, obviously, Mike. And I think sometimes, and it's not necessarily their fault. I'm just saying, if someone new comes in the hobby, they may not know the history of the hobby. Now, whether they go back and research that or dive into it, that's up to each individual. I've just been involved in the hobby for 40 years, like you, wearing a lot of different hats. Not as many as you, but I always say we're here now where we are in the hobby because of what happened before. Whether you know that or not doesn't change the fact that we wouldn't be what we see in 2023 if 1975 Phoenix Giants set doesn't happen and lead to Pacific and then Innovation and other companies too. But what's happened in the past has gotten to us, gotten the hobby where it is now. You can't have one mutually exclusive of the other. They're all connected. Now, whether someone knows that or acknowledges it, that's a whole different show. But the fact to me is that it is. Not that you to toot your own horn, but do you feel like you get enough credit for some of that innovation that you brought to the hobby?
Starting to get it. In the last couple of years, I've heard that from collectors so many times that we started it all. Pacific started it all, and Pacific led to what the hobby's collecting now. And I have to tell you, during the time that we were making those outrageous cards, is what they called them back then, we weren't getting a lot of credit. In fact, we were getting sometimes articles in some of the hobby papers that said, we were getting too far out, and we just were way too far ahead of our time in some cases. But I think now it's being known more and more. And one of the reasons I wrote my book is I heard that so much from collectors and dealers, and I started to visit some hobby shops, and they were all saying great things about what we did back then. And the collectors are in their stores buying the same looking cards that we made. I like the cards that are being made now because they look like and it's kind of the same theory that what we're using. And so I'm happy about where it went, and I think collectors are intrigued by the cards being made nowadays because they're exciting looking and in some cases wild looking. And you can only put so much down on a 2.5 by 3.5 size card, and it's being pushed quite a bit nowadays.
When you see a card or a company that makes a card that is obviously based on a Pacific design, and I'm not talking about where the intellectual property has been necessarily purchased, but where it's just sort of a copycat or a rendition that you sort of did first. Do you find it flattering, or is there a part of you that's kind of mad that, hey, like, in a way that's kind of, they stole sort of my idea, or is it a little bit maybe even of both?
I never think about that they stole my idea. I'm totally flattered. For example, Topps did recently a Topps 206, the little small ones. I looked at that and said the Pacific private stock 206 cards look exactly the same. They just kind of used what we did. That's so flattering to me because I'm not in the business anymore. But the fact that what I did, they're using my ideas. I mean, it's nothing but flattering, and I'm not ever mad about it or anything because I'm beyond that. And I can only look back and go, what we created and what we did. They can't come up with something different, so they use what I did. That it's got to be flat.
Yeah, that's a great attitude and approach to have, Mike. And reading the book, this is obviously something I didn't know at the time and didn't know until I read the book, is you are very hands-on. In other words, when it came even to the machines that had to, wrap the cards, you learn how to fix them, modify them to products you were developing and that sort of thing. And, where a lot of other people would have ran into like dead ends and maybe threw their hands up and said, hey, I can't do this. We tried. Good try, everybody. that's it. That's a wrap. You were persistent. You found ways to make it work, whether it be modifying a machine to fit the needs of a product that you were going to make, or even just finding machines, or just, hey, we need, we're ramping up production. We need to purchase more machines, and like finding where some were available and adding them to the arsenal, so the production didn't really cease or stop, and if anything, increase and make it easier what you're doing for not only you but your staff that was growing at the time. Were you always sort of had that initiative, even as a young man, or
I've
did you?
always
Is it an acquired trait?
No, I've always been like that. If I wanted to get it done, I figured out a way to do it. And even back and you read my book, obviously, and I'm very happy you did that. Those machines, like the DF wrapper that made wax packs, and there's a picture of that machine in my book, and I wonder how many actual collectors of wax packs have ever seen the machine that actually makes that. Made those wax packs, and we all used them. All the companies that made wax packs back then used that same machine. But that was what I had to do, and I've always been resourceful and been able to figure out anything I needed to figure out. And it was nothing more than it had to be done. I had to do it, and I read the manual how to change that machine over from wrapping candy to wrapping baseball cards, and then it all took off after that. As far as Pacific, it just made leaps and bounds, and so it's just in my blood that if I need to do something, like writing that book, I'm not an author, but I decided I would be. I don't even know if I could spell author when I started it, and I ended up writing that book because I wanted to, and that's just the way I am. I'm just one of those guys that can do it if I need to.
Yeah, that's a great trait to have, and perseverance. It's worth more than its value in money. Where I think, reading those chapters too, Mike, I said to myself, there's other guys that would be in the same predicament that would just give up or say, hey, man, it just not meant to be, that sort of thing. And you didn't do that. You persevered. You figured out there's more than one way to do things. You can innovate. You can improvise and keep going. And Pacific was all the more better because you made those calls. And I think, did you ever have moments where you really, at least internally, like, I don't know if we're going to make it, or how long I can do this for? It's difficult. Do you ever have those internal, maybe quiet moments?
Never. It was so busy back then. We were so busy, finishing a product, starting a new product, coming up with new ideas, that it was a constant rumble, so to speak, and never had a stop moment where I went, oh no, what am I doing? It was just not like that. It was like same thing with fishing. It was nonstop work all the time. Never quit hauling gear, and the card business was the same way. I even say in my book that when I got all done and sold the company and walked away, I couldn't believe how different the whole world was. But yeah, I was a nonstop go-getter.
Yeah, and I remember reading that, like you kind of could breathe. I know you mentioned you woke up like the next day, like, I don't got to go to work today. It was kind of a weird feeling, I'm sure, for you, but in a way, sort of relief too, like the pressure, I think the term you use, like the gorilla was off your back. You didn't even really realize you had one on there until you didn't anymore.
Exactly.
Sort of that weight and pressure was gone. And you got to do some stuff probably, that you didn't get to do because, duty always sort of called. You even mentioned, even when you took vacations with your spouse, you were still sort of on call or on duty. And so while you may not have been in the state or what have you, you were still, your mind was still on your company and how things were going and what was going on, even when you weren't there. And because it's your baby, right? You want everything to be great. And now you, with that retirement, if you will, you sort of can let your hair down, so to speak, and like, hey, I don't have to worry about what's going on in, today. I can worry about me and, hey, what do I want to do? I got the whole day to fill with stuff I really want to do, and not sort of my mind be in two places, can be in one place. And, I thought that was pretty telling and interesting.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
For more than 30 years, Robert Edward Auctions has been the nation's premier auction house, specializing in sports memorabilia and trading cards. With significant experience and expertise in all major sport, non-sport, and Americana collectibles, REA has helped clients achieve record-breaking prices for their items and has done so with a reputation for integrity and transparency. By actively partnering with collectors and enthusiasts throughout the entire process, REA has created the hobby's most trusted forum for selling high-quality collectibles. Go to robertedwardauctions.com for more information on how to buy or sell in their next auction.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
How much back during those days when you had all the different companies, Mike, yourself, with Pacific, Tops, Upper Deck, Fleer Scoring, until a lot of those started going by the wayside. I know it was competitive. How much, like, internally would, like if you came up with a new design, let's say, were you worried about somebody, like, letting the cat out of the bag or taking a picture and sending it somewhere else? Obviously, we didn't have social media like we do now, or even technology when it comes to photo sharing and stuff. Was that a concern or not really at that time when it came to, like, were other companies worried about what you were doing and vice versa? And were you concerned that something you did all the legwork on, someone was going to get those sort of plans, if you will, and try to do it at the same time or beat you to the punch?
We didn't really have any worry about somebody taking our design and or finding out about it, because everything was done in-house. We didn't have any outside graphic or design work. It was all done in-house, and so we had control over that. But we were always wanting to get that card design, the new one, out in our product first, because we saw how other companies would come out with a design first, and then other companies would begin to do something similar. And so we were scrambling, if we came up with a new idea, to get it out and not really rush it to the market, but get it in our product first, because once it was out there, obviously the other companies saw what we were doing, and that's how it evolved to how the cards are being made nowadays. They kind of all look like what we were doing back. And so no real concern about somebody stealing it first, but the fact that we wanted to get it out there so collectors would see what we were doing, that was a big drive for us.
Yeah, one of the great advantages you have, and it just, and this I did know even before reading the book, but obviously you went into more details that I didn't know, is you printed your own products. You were hands-on, where a lot of these other companies were outsourcing that. And I think that's where maybe designs or information leaks out, because it's not protected under your four walls. How much of an advantage even besides cost, even how much of an advantage was having those processes in-house where others didn't?
Well, we did all of our pre-press work, designs, and actually made the film to print. And we did all of our own packaging. We outsourced, most of the printing was done outside, but under great security. But the fact that we did all of our own designs and pre-press work and packaging, number one, got us a lot of contract work, and allowed us to have the control over the designs. And I would go down to the graphic department at least once a day and look at the designs, and having that great control on in your hands led to even better looking cards. And then the fact that we could package the cards in-house was really a huge advantage to us also.
Yeah, no doubt. That way you hit those deadlines. You knew, like, hey, I need sort of all hands on deck so we can get this out on time, rather than rely on another company to have that same initiative or motivation. How much of that was it an issue in the hobby then, Mike? Were companies trying to find out what Pacific was doing and vice versa, or was everyone sort of head down, kind of worrying about their own, what they were doing internally?
I'm sure they were paying attention. I actually witnessed a couple of times where another company, when we were at a trade conference, scrambled to get some of our sample cards that we were handing out. And I laughed about it because it was almost comical that what was going on. But I never was concerned about it because, number one, we were out there first with almost everything that we created, and I never looked at what they were doing, the other company, but I'm sure they were paying attention because we were from about 1998 to 2000, a couple of years in there. We had three major licenses: baseball, football, and hockey, and we were a factor. And people were paying attention. The other companies were paying attention.
No doubt, and as they should. And like you said, you were a risk taker. I think you'll agree with me. You can tell me if you do or you don't. I think the fact that you're a risk taker really was one of the reasons Pacific was a success, is because you did stuff that maybe someone else would have been too scared to do. A couple of instances, and you talk about it in the book, but even if you didn't read the book and you're kind of a hobby sort of historian, or you produced the most Tom Brady releases in the year 2000 before he was a household name and a MVP and multi-ring owner. He was a mid-round, a late-round pick that was supposed to be Drew Bledsoe's backup for longer than it turned out to be. But you saw something, as you wrote. You saw that the it that we talk about it, but no, we really can't quantify it in words. It's just the it factor. You saw that early on and said, "Hey, I'm gonna make cards of this young athlete where others are probably writing them off already as just the guy that'll probably be out of the league in 3 or 4 years and just a footnote in draft history." And you saw past that. You saw something there. And like you said in the book, he has the most rookies are Pacific produced cards. You took another risk with an item that I still love to this day. I won't eat it anymore. But 1989, I know he was being the son of Ken Griffey Jr., but he hadn't proven anything at the time. And you produced quite a bit of candy bars that you made. The candy bars themselves, and I did an article, I know you saw that, the candy bars themselves became a collectible. How often can you say that? There's been athlete candy bars before. The Reggie bar was one I grew up on as a younger kid. But they were just a candy bar with a photo on the outside. Your Ken Griffey Jr. bar was in a way a collectible besides the chocolate that was, and even the chocolate itself had designs and stuff on it as well. You could have easily just made the wrappers as you did and just have the chocolate inside, but that was your attention to detail. You wanted the chocolate, Mike, to be representative of the athlete, and you took a risk there because Ken Griffey Jr. wasn't Ken Griffey Jr. as we know him today yet. And where did that risk take? I may be working on those fishing boats and charters. Kind of did that, but that was a risk that paid off, and in spades to me. I'll let you, those were your risks, not mine. But those products and those decisions live on today, including those candy bars. I have probably 25 of them still, and not the wrappers. I mean, that's intact. Probably a good 18 of them look like they did very similar in '89, at least on the outside. And then there's a 7 or 8 that are sort of beat up, but I view them as collectibles. I have them over there in like an 800 count box that, that anyone that knows what we're talking about, the Griffey candy, you had blue and yellow wrappers, and I have probably split right down the middle, the same amount of each one. Kind of talk about those risk taking that in at least in those 2 cases, and in other cases, those aren't the only 2 things where you sort of went out on a limb, but those are the 2 big ones that come to my mind. Talk about those decisions and those risks.
Well, with the Tom Brady rookie cards, and there's a checklist in the back of my book because we did make a lot of different rookie cards. But I actually shot him at the East-West Shrine game down in California, and I saw him firsthand play, and I could see he had the tools right there, then and there, because I'd shot so many games. And I'd seen the Joe Montanas and the Dan Marinos and the poise they had, and the Kurt Warners, and other quarterbacks, the Brett Favres, and they all have the same similar look. If you're looking for a quarterback who might have the potential to be a great one, I think Brock Purdy's another one that if people are writing him off, they better think otherwise. He's got that same poise that I see, and to take a risk, it's just part of what I can do, and pick something out like that, like making cards of Tom Brady, more than one rookie card, because I saw it in firsthand and ran with it. And the fact that he performed the way that he did, nobody could have ever thought he'd be as great as he turned out. But I saw firsthand that he was going to be something. And when he finally got to play and prove himself, I put him on a Cramer Choice card the next year in 2002. And that was before he actually did anything tremendously special. And, basically the rest of that's history, and he became the GOAT. And with the Griffey bar, I'd seen him in spring training. And when I was down shooting pictures for our cards, and I just knew the feeling that he was going to make the team, become a great one. When I signed him, he hadn't made the team. They had talked about he might get to come north with the team, and I just ran with it because I thought he's going to do it, and he did. And that's a testament that taking a chance is that could have gone the other way, but it didn't. And the fact that I actually did that is, before he ever came and came north with the team, just turned out so good. And that's just part of why a guy like me can write a book, because things like that happen and people want to hear about it. And so pretty happy with that also.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I got a couple cavities, thanks to you, Mike. I was 17 at the time. I ate a few of those, but there was some, even, why a chocolate bar? I guess that is one of the questions. How did that all fall in line, that you said, hey, I'm going to do something a little outside the box? I mean, with confectionery and a candy bar.
And the actual story to that is, you can read it in my
Yeah.
book. But I had a walk through my store after talking to my store manager, and I saw the Reggie bar, and that was we had in our store for sale, and that spurred me to go, this Ken Griffey Jr., he needs a candy bar. He's going to be that good. And that's where it started. And then as I walked across the street back to my office, I already had a plan on how I was going to produce that bar and how I was going to get it done. And I ran with it, and you can read the rest of that in my book.
Yeah, and the rest is history. And I grew up as a New York City kid, Mike. I ate plenty of Reggie bars too. So the combination, I can thank Mike Cramer, Reggie Jackson, and Ken Griffey Jr. for some of the early cavities I had as a younger man. But how many, and did you, like, you, as you said, you were walking across the street and the gears were already turning and you sort of had ideas in place. The final product, which we know all these years later today, but that was exactly sort of what you wanted to do. You almost wanted to make a chocolate card inside with the wrapper being even collectible, because people are collecting the wrappers. Like, the chocolate's gone, and people are putting the wrappers in protective, like top loaders and sheets and that sort of thing. Were you thinking along those lines, or was it, hey, I just want to make a great candy bar because I think, Griffey Jr. is going to be, a great player, potential Hall of Famer? Or were you thinking even on the collectible level?
No, I was thinking on a collectible level, and that's why I made the chocolate with his image on. Number one, it would be fun to open the thing and go, here's a Ken Griffey is on this chocolate. That had never been done ever, and then to wrap it in the two colors gave it a good look in the display box. The other thing that we made that didn't get out there very often was the candy bar card of Griffey.
Yep.
And
I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, they were inserted on top of the box, and I think the first person that opened the box got the card.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of them out there, but I don't think that more than one person out of a box got to see that card.
Yeah. How many candy, when the presses stopped rolling and the chocolate stopped flowing, how many candy bars did you produce?
There was about 1 million candy bars made of Griffey, and I think, like you said, a lot of people ate those, especially in the Seattle area. I know 20, 30 people that said they ate some of them, and they saved a couple and put a couple in their freezer. And nowadays I wouldn't eat the thing. The chocolate's 30 years or more old. But if I don't know how it's crazy.
I have a box, like I said, over there with probably about 20 to 24 bars, and some of them look like you made them yesterday, Mike. Like, I don't know how they've stood the test of time. They look like, I'm almost tempted to eat. They look like they're at least from the outside, they look like I haven't opened them. And it's funny you mentioned like the freezer. I remember I only had 2 at one point, and I was in Syracuse at the time, and this was years after the bars were made, and I had 2 left, and I put them in the freezer, like you said, because I didn't want them to melt. And I went back to New York City to work, I was with my grandma. She stayed here in Syracuse, and I told my grandma, hey, I'm putting these 2 candy bars in the fridge. Don't touch them, or don't eat them, or don't throw them out, and to preserve them. And I came back, and they were in there, and I thawed them out. I think I still have them. And then I added to that by buying more. I said, man, how many people did this? I got to think most of them have been consumed. Like, I want to buy more and just keep. They're collectible to me. So it almost was like a competition. Like, how many of these can I buy at a and try to corner the market, tongue in cheek. And I've like I said, I've got 20 something. I guess it's all speculation and guesstimation. I mean, how many do you think exist still intact from that million? That I know I ate some myself, and as many others did. I mean, what would you
I
think?
don't think it's that many, because I think people had fun consuming them. And I don't know the fact that it's chocolate. If you put chocolate in the wrong environment, it goes away, as in melts. Or I don't know how good putting them in the freezer is either. I heard it turns them to dust if they're in there too long. So how many actually that were trying to be collected got destroyed in the wrong environment? So I wouldn't speculate to guess, but I don't think as many are out there as people would think.
Yeah, and not that it's about dollar signs, because it really shouldn't be. But when you think about that, right, you think of something that at one point had 1 million, editions of it, and now maybe there's four figures, maybe even less, as you potentially say. There's a collectible value there, and then I'm sure in the future some are going to be thrown away, whether by mistake or on purpose, and that sort of thing, or maybe they deteriorate. I don't know how. Like, Syracuse is not Arizona or California with 100-degree type temps, but we get probably about 90-degree days a year, maybe some years more. How those bars that I have are like still, they're just in a box that you would put baseball cards in, and yet every once in a while I open that box up and they look like they came off the conveyor belt yesterday. I always get a kick out of that these things are now 34 years old, right? 30 plus years. And some of them, probably 75% of the ones that I own are like intact and look like they're like, like the Smithsonian's been keeping them and using all sorts of techniques. And yet there's nothing special going on. I just have them in the box on the shelf. There's no humidity. It's not like I have them in a humidor or a special closet, and to the point I don't even worry about them anymore. Like I think initially I'm like worried, how do I maintain these and not lose them, or to have them, like you say, melt away or get all out of shape and falling outside the wrapper, and it's to the point now, like they've been like that for years. I don't even really think about it anymore. Just amazing. And like you said, how many even exist at this point?
Well, maybe you'll have a nostalgic moment and go to your box and get one and open it up and think about eating.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'd do anything for a charity cause, and I'd get a stomach ache. I'd probably not just for nothing. I don't want a stomach ache for nothing. But I just wonder. I mean, some of them look like you could do that and maybe not even worry about getting ill, or it's just one of those things we can't explain. I'll put it in that category. But I mean, again, that was a product, right? Candy bars, athlete candy bars had been done previously, but you did them better, right? You took sort of that original concept and say, hey, let's make this a collectible in itself. And for those that want to eat them, great. And for guys like John Newman who are crazy and want to keep 20 of them in a box, they're collectible that way. And again, as someone who ate plenty of Reggie bars, and there's been other, Tony Gwynn had a bar. You actually made a Tony Gwynn. But there's been other, yeah. So that, but Griffey was sort of the one that started it all for you, but there's been other athlete candy bars that weren't collected. They were meant to be consumed only. And I think you sort of bridge both of those worlds, as a collectible and as an edible, and not easy to do. And yet put another feather in your cap there. And to this day, and I still search. One of my searches on eBay, probably letting, maybe now I'll add it to a few other people's searches, is 1989 Pacific Griffey bar. And I every once in a while, even though I have quite a bit, I'll look just to see how many are listed out there. And I'll tell you the truth, 75% of the listings I find are like you said, are just the wrap, like we talked about, just kind of the wrappers as collectible. But the intact bars are starting to be fewer and farther between. And I'm not necessarily collecting them for the value of them, but it's just, I don't know how many exist, and it's kind of cool to get as many as you can. And I've given them to people and that sort of thing. Even I've given them to people, and they're like, "What is this?" And then I get to tell the story, right? And that's the fun part about it.
Good for you.
Yeah, and well, it's your innovation and mine that made that product, and that we have it even 34 years later. As crazy as it sounds, we're talking about a piece of chocolate. And sometimes in cards that's a testament, but we're talking about a collectible chocolate. And I was kind of curious to get your sort of take on how many you think sort of survived intact. Obviously, a lot of them made it in people's bellies as they were designed to do, including myself. And after about a year, I stopped eating them because I started just keeping them. And at one point, I only had 2 or 3. Like I said, I put them in the fridge and then came back after a few years and pulled them back out of there. They were fairly similar, I would say, if my memory serves me right. But I never put them in the fridge since. And like I said, they're still in great shape. And it's pretty cool to think that you can, have a piece of confectionery that lasts 34 years and has a Hall of Famer representing on it. So that's very, very cool. And I'll try to add a few more to my inventory. Now talking about it, got my juices flowing. All right, we're going to stop the interview there to keep this episode at a reasonable length. But next week, we will have the second part of the 2-part interview with Mr. Mike Cramer of Pacific Trading Cards. And man, we talked about a lot of stuff. So there's more interesting conversation coming. It was, again, a privilege and honor for me, who I grew up in the wheelhouse of Pacific and them taking on the big boys and making an impact. And that impact is still being felt today. So come back next Friday and we'll have the conclusion of the conversation with Mike. Now let's hear from our Hobby is the People announcer for the week. Some closing thoughts.
Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
Hello, we are
Grant, Rory, Annie,
and we are
Lakeside Collectibles.
Please remember,
the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
That's a wrap for this week. Huge thanks to you, the listeners out there, because without you, there is no us. If you like the show, we truly appreciate positive reviews. Big ups to our great guests who drive the show and our awesome sponsors who make it all possible. Sports Card Nation will be back next week, but don't forget to catch either Hobby Quick Hits or Card Mentions coming up on Monday. I'll leave you with this. How do we change the world? One random act of kindness at a time. Remember, the hobby is the people.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and the first Tuesday of each month at 9 p.m. Eastern to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.